Hey everyone, Andy Rafael from eTeknix.com, and if anyone's watched any of my videos before, you know that I've been quite, let's say, critical about the TUF series of cards. But on this occasion, I'm going to take it all back. Let's do this. The IQ H150i Elite Capellix from Corsair. Let's take a look. These LEDs, they're so bright. These Capellix LEDs, really are going to outshine the competition. I should click the link in the description to find out more. So what we've essentially got here today is an RTX 3080, as you'd expect. This is the TUF edition from Asus, and I want to get a few things clear straight out of the gate. This is basically an MSRP card. It's priced in at the same price as the Founders Edition at £650 in the UK. Obviously, depending on where you are in the world, it could be a slightly different price. But what does the TUF series really mean? Well, anyone who's watched any of my videos, as I mentioned at the start of this, will know I've been quite over-analytical about the TUF series. It's never really had a place in the market, and I say that in a sense that it doesn't really know where it belongs. When TUF kind of series, was first implemented by Asus on motherboards, it came out as being this military grade thing that was all about sort of stability. But that kind of took away from the fact of, well, does that mean non-TUF products aren't as stable? So it had a really weird way of marketing it. Then as it kind of moved on over the years, for some reason they decided to go with like a yellow industrious theme. And while they may have kind of thought that that worked for them, for the majority of consumers it just didn't, because, I mean, who wants something that looks industrious and has bright yellow on it? Sometimes that's going to dictate as to how your system's going to look, and in all honesty, I don't think that's what the average consumer wants. So where is the TUF series now? Well, now it's actually turned into something so much more than what it was before. And I say that in a really weird way, because essentially after having discussions with Asus themselves, they've kind of, let's say, irked at the idea that the TUF series is basically what the Strix series was the generation before. So if you imagine this is a 3080, I mean, you don't need to imagine that, it is. Don't even know why I said that. But with the 3080, essentially, if what I was trying to, I guess, deduce from what Asus had actually told me, is this has a Strix 20 series cooler on it. The 20 series TUF would have had a 10 series Strix cooler on it. So they're basically using last year's Strix technology on this year's cards. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, because as we all know, the Strix cards are generally regarded as one of the coolest and one of the quietest products out there in the GPU realm. The only problem is 9 times out of 10 you're going to pay through the nose for it. So what does that actually mean for the TUF series? Well, it means that you do get that really great cooling performance and obviously quietness, but you're not going to pay that huge, large premium. I mean, I'm going to hazard a guess, because prices are still all over the place with profiteering from retailers and everything, that the Strix card, when it does eventually kind of hit the shelves, is going to be probably £750. So very similar to the MSI RTX 3080 Gaming X Trio that we looked at on launch day. So this is £100 cheaper, essentially, than what the Strix will be, and £100 cheaper than what probably the biggest rival out there with the MSI Gaming X Trio is going to be. So do you really kind of lose out on stuff? Well, the simple answer is no. So what do we get with a TUF card? Well, you get a pretty decent bulky backplate. You get a triple fan cooler, much like we've seen on the Asus Strix. You get 2 8-pin connectors. It has a performance mode and a quiet mode. I mean, for the most part, everyone's going to have this in performance mode, because when I tell you the figures about how it actually did perform, especially when we're talking about how loud it is, you are going to be completely blown away. Now, one thing I do want to mention is RGB. Not everyone's into it, and you'll be pleased to find that, well, there's only one bit of RGB on this whole card, and it's this little panel here. And we will put some B-roll over this just so you can kind of see how it looks, but there's nothing stopping you kind of turning that off either. So aside from the RGB and the big beefy cooler, I mean, this is a 2 and a little bit slot card. I'm not going to say it's 2.5, it's maybe just under that. Let's call it 2.3 sort of slot. It is a fairly large card though, and you do get the kind of, typical stuff that you'd expect with a 3080. So we have got all the usual specs of, 10 gig of GDDR6X memory. We do get mass amounts of DisplayPort connectors as well as HDMI 2.1. It has got a very, very beefy cooler on there, and that's what I guess the TUF series is all about. But what does that really translate to in terms of what they're able to push out of this power-wise? So let's talk about specs a little bit. Well, with the Founders Edition card, it's all about the boost clock. So it came in at 1710 megahertz. With the MSI Gaming X Trio, and I am going to keep referring to that because there's a very important point, which you will see after the benchmarks, that came in at 1815 megahertz. So quite a nice jump. So where does this one sit? Being £100 cheaper than the Gaming X Trio and the same price as the Founders Edition. It actually comes in at 1785 megahertz. So we are looking at about 30 megahertz less than the Gaming X Trio, but we're looking at still a nice sizable jump from the Founders Edition for the same price. This is, ignore what the retailers are charging, this is the same price. So what's that going to relay when it actually means, performance-wise? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's run them glorious benchmarks. So benchmark wise, let's really try and drill down into this because it's such an important thing, which is kind of why I'm so excited about this card. I honestly don't think there's a better card out there for this money, period. Even for more money at the moment, but obviously I've only tested a few of these cards. Now when you look at it, it was trading blows with the MSI Gaming X Trio pretty much all the way along the way, whether it be in 1440, whether it be in 1080p, whether it be 4K, or even the 8K tests that we ran. And frankly, that just is pretty damn remarkable because this is 100 quid cheaper than the MSI card. This is the same price as a Founders Edition card. Obviously, we haven't got a Founders Edition card to compare it against, so that does make it a little bit of a tricky one. But I don't think the Founders Edition card is going to be up there in terms of performance when it comes to comparing it against this and the MSI card. So, okay, the MSI card is 100 quid more. So what do you get from that? What do you lose out on this? Well, frankly, from our testing, this is going to be 2 decibels louder. In all honesty, I can deal with that because for that trade-off, this is 10 degrees lower in our testing. I mean, 10 degrees, that is a huge amount. So, yes, do you want the trade-off? A little bit louder that you're probably never even going to notice. As soon as this is in a system, you're just not going to notice it at all. And I even sort of, had it on the test bench, open air, so I can really sort of hear things. And there wasn't a point where I looked at it and thought, that's really bothering me. It was still a very, very low amount. Yet 10 degrees lower than a card that is £100 more expensive. I'm a little bit baffled because when I made the MSI video, I said, it was a great card, and it frankly is. But this has just completely blown me away, and I'm pretty much lost for words, which, if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll kind of know that that generally doesn't happen. So what does that mean for actually getting hold of this card? Well, at the moment, the retail world is completely screwed. And I say that in the fact that there were scalpers using bots, and now they're selling these cards on eBay for stupid amounts of money. I've got a video on that, so go check it out. So what does that really mean? Well, at the moment, you can't even buy this card. You can't buy any card. But when it comes to a point when retailers actually have the stock, what one would I be looking at? I'd seriously be saying this one, because if you're not bothered about RGB and you don't mind having essentially last year's technology in terms of the cooler, I mean, I may even be completely wrong on that, but that's kind of what I've taken away from it. You are going to get probably the best value for money RTX 3080 on the planet right now, based on what I've tested, which is only 3 cards. So take from that what you will. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know exactly what to do, and let me know in the comments section below. Were you able to get a 3080 yourself? Are you holding out for the 16 gig variants and the TIs and the Supers and all these other rumours that are going on? And frankly, I'm just amazed at what Asus have done here. I mean, how have they done it? And even now, if they're going to bring out a Strix card, why is anyone going to buy it? It's going to have to be stupidly good to compete with, well, themselves. There you go, guys. I'll see you in the next one. See you later. Bye-bye. Remix.